In the last section, we created the data source or list of recipients for our memo. In this section, we will convert the main document into a letter and merge it with the list. We have already written our letter, and now we have to tell Word where we want to insert the names of the recipients. Currently, we left off with the completion of step 3 of 6. Click Next, write your letter. Move the mouse pointer to the text box at the top of our document beginning with This Memo. Delete the words This Memo is being distributed to all company employees. In its place, type This Memo is for. Be sure to add a space after the word for. Word has several methods for inserting fields into our document. In the task pane, click Address block. Here is a sample of an address block which we could use in a heading for this letter. The previous box shows how our address will appear on our document. We will not be using a letter address block, but rather our employee's name followed by their department. Let's find something closer to what we want. Press Cancel, and from the taskbar, open More Items. The Insert Merge Field dialog box opens so we can design our own greeting line. Be sure the Database Fields radio button is selected. Click First Name and Insert. The first name field now appears in our main document right after the word for. The special brackets around the words indicate that this is a field code. The field code marks a place for data to be inserted from our data source file. Click Close. Press the spacebar on the keyboard to separate the first name from the last name, just as you would if you were typing in the names directly. Open More Items again. Click Last Name and Insert. Close the dialog box. Now we want to add the department field. Right after the last name field code, add a space and type the word in. Add a space after the word. Open More Items and click Department. Select Insert. Close the dialog box. Add a period and add a return by clicking Enter. We now have all 3 field codes inserted in our flyer. Save the document using the Control-S keyboard shortcut. There are almost no limitations to how we can use data fields. We can place the field codes into our main document in any order we want and as many times as we want. In fact, we can have an entire document made of nothing but field codes. Here is the flyer for the first person in our data file. Each of our field codes have been replaced precisely with the information entered in the data source file. We can preview all of our letters by clicking the arrows on either side of Recipient under the first section on the task pane. Click the right arrow and here's the next flyer for the next recipient. We can also search for a specific person, which is helpful when we have a long list. Click the blue prompt, Find a Recipient. In the Find box, type Linda. We could designate which field to look in, but let's leave all fields selected. Click Find Next. In the text pane, we see Linda's letter as listed as the 6th letter in our series. Click Cancel to close the Find Entry dialog box. In the center section of the task pane, Word gives us another chance to exclude this person and edit our list. Our list is fine, so we'll skip this option. We are now ready to go to our final step. Click Next, complete the merge at the bottom. Word saves our letter with all the names and departments filled in. We are ready for our final step. Click Print. From the box, we have the choice of printing all the letters, the current record, or a range of flyers. We don't need to print these now, so click Cancel. Our flyers are saved and ready, so all we have to do is prepare our envelopes. Let's set up a mailing list for our document. This flyer is part of a package of information being sent to employees at their home addresses. Everything is ready to go except the mailing labels. We can use Mail Merge to create the labels as easily as we did the personalized flyers. As we mentioned before, a mailing list can be imported from Access, Excel, Outlook, or another mailing list program. We have a mailing list in our practice lesson files to use for this task. Let's see how to use it. In order to create our labels, we need to start with a new blank document. Hold down the Control key and press N to open a new document. In our new document, let's return to the Mailings tab. The Envelopes and Labels tools would be useful right now if we wanted to create a single envelope or a sheet of duplicate labels. But we are going to use the Mail Merge Wizard and Task pane that we used in the last section. Once again, from the Mailings tab, click the Start Mail Merge tool and choose the Step-by-Step Mail Merge Wizard options. This time, highlight the Radio button in the Task pane next to Labels. Click Starting Document at the bottom of the screen to go to the next step. We need to set the label's size. With the option Change Document Layout selected, click Label Options to open the dialog box. When the box opens under Printer Information, select your printer type. We used a laser printer, so we can leave this selection as it is on page printers. Word has made setting up a label document very easy. We will need the information from the outside of the box of labels to match to the options on our screen. We are using a box of labels we purchased at the office supply store. The outside of the box contains all the information we need to set up the label document. The brand name is Avery, and the product number is 5160. In the Label Vendors drop-down list, select Avery US Letter. Under Product Number, just below, scroll to find the product number 5160 and select it. On the right is the label information, which measures the same as the outside of the box. It also tells us that the size of the sheet of labels is letter size 8.5 by 11. Click the Details button in the lower left corner of the dialog box. Here are the dimensions of labels as well as the picture of our label. We will not need to change any of these measurements for this label, so click OK. If the label we want to use is not listed in the product number box, we might be able to use one of the other labels listed here by matching the dimensions. We can also create our own custom labels. Click New Label. We would use these boxes to name and fill in the dimensions of our custom label. Click Cancel to return to the dialog box. Our labels are all set, so click OK. At the bottom of the task pane, click Next, select Recipients. If we had typed addresses into our list when we created it in the last step, we could use that now. But for this lesson, we're going to use an existing list from the Video Professor Practice Lesson Files folder. Click the radio button next to Use an Existing List if it is not already selected, and click Browse. Our computer defaults to All Data Sources, which is where we stored the list from Mail Merge. Navigate to your computer's C drive. Open the Video Professor Practice Lesson Files folder. There's the document we're looking for, VP Mailing List. This is an Excel document, as we can tell by the green X on its icon. Select this document. It is not necessary to have Excel installed on your machine or to know how to use Excel in order to use this mailing list. Word will be able to convert our mailing list from any format to make labels. Click the Open button. Although Excel has several sheets available, all the addresses are in Sheet 1. There is also a header on the Excel mailing sheet, so be sure there is a check mark next to the box by the statement, First row of data contains column headers. Click OK. The Next Option button allows us to select specific names for our labels, just like we saw in the last section. We will use all of these names, so click OK. Notice each label field in our sheet contains the words Next Record, except for the first one. We'll fix that in the next screen. Click Next Arrange Your Labels at the bottom of the task pane. We are creating the address block, so select that option. Here we have several options on how our address block should look. Our first choice is how the recipient's name will appear. The default is fine, so we will leave the name format as it is. The second option inserts the company name. That is not necessary. However, if we do not have any information that matches a certain field, Word will leave it out and gray out the line. Since we don't have any company information in our data source, it doesn't matter whether we check the box or not. Because these are mailing labels, Insert Postal Address should also be checked. Click the Match Fields button in the lower right corner. Notice our title is Courtesy Title on the Excel list. Word is assuming that this is the same field, but if it wasn't, we could use the drop-down menu to select the correct one. We don't need to make any changes, so click OK. The preview window shows how our labels will look. It's the right format, so click OK again. Notice now the first block starts Address Block. Go to the bottom of our task pane and click Next, Preview Your Labels. Only the first label came through. Actually, we did this on purpose because we wanted to see how our labels would look before we updated the remaining fields. The label looks fine, so let's go back and make it so for all of them. Click Previous, Arrange Your Labels, so we can update the rest of the address blocks on the page. Toward the bottom of the task pane, click the prompt titled Update All Labels. Click Next, Preview Your Labels again. All of our addresses are now included in the list. We can make changes or edit this information if we want. We need to make a small change. Look on the first label in the second column, the address block for Holden Bonds. His apartment number is on a separate line, but we want it on the same line as the rest of his address. Move the mouse and click at the end of the address line and hit Delete. Add a space to separate the apartment number from the rest of the address. It looks good, so let's finish up our labels. Click Next, Complete the Merge. The mail merge is ready to produce our mailing labels. If we click Print, this product will go directly to our printer. But first, we want to save this sheet of labels to a new document. Click Edit Individual Labels. With the All Radio button selected, click OK to include all the names. We can now save our document for future use. However, keep in mind that if changes are made to the Excel document, we must update it the next time we use it. We can now put our label sheet into the printer and print it out. And we have our mailing labels ready to apply to our envelopes. We're done with the labels in our ergonomics flyer, so go ahead and close them both, saving our changes. We've come to the end of our lesson. In these 3 lessons, we've covered all the fundamentals of Word and used many of its advanced tools to create our documents. Now that you've become more familiar with Word, we encourage you to return and begin creating your own documents. With practice, you'll soon be using these new skills with ease.